live from the Drew Estate Cigar Studio in Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome to the Spare Notes series with your hosts, Matt Tabacco and William Cooper.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Spare Notes series. It's Spare Notes 50. We're halfway to 100, it's crazy to think that after 2.5 years we're only at 50. But this is not a weekly show, so I mean it does take a little bit of time. The Smoke Tobacco show, I think we're over 200 now. The thing is we don't keep track of it, so I actually don't know how many episodes we're in, but I'm joined with joined once again, is as we announced on the Smoke Tobacco show this week, my new co-host on both shows moving forward. That's right, it's Kevin Acuff from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, in the Gurkha Cigar Studios.
How's it going, guys?
It's it's been a month, a lot's happened, and just trying to stay on top of life, and I just, especially with the holidays, end of the year stuff, Kevin will tell you, I mean, we're not even going to sugarcoat it for you guys. We're fucking exhausted, to say the least. So,
makes me kind of think of a quote from like one of my favorite movies of all time, Heartbreak Ridge. It's a clusterfuck.
I never saw that movie.
Oh my God.
I know, and I'm usually really good with movies and quotes and certain things, but I actually never saw that one, so I have to add that to my list. So
that's a good one. That's another one of those movies like the Clint Eastwood one-liners. There's a bunch of them in there.
Clint Eastwood's in that movie? He's not?
Dude, you're literally like gonna make me push the disconnect button.
I don't know. I mean, when did it come out? Who's in it?
Shit, it's got to be 20 years old, maybe older.
All right. Well,
it has Clint Eastwood, Mario Van Peebles, or however his name is.
I really like Clint Eastwood. That's why I'm like, I can't believe I haven't heard of this. This is whack.
It's a great movie.
Although I am a big fan of Clint's earlier movies. Especially the trio of the spaghetti westerns. Dirty Harry was good.
Mm-hmm.
And of course Gran Torino was a good one. Like when he got older, like that was a good movie. I liked that one. Yeah, I'm a fan of Clint's. I can get down with that. I'll have to.
Well, now you have something to add to your to-do list.
Yeah, like it's not long enough. Oh man. Sorry, I'm still kind of getting myself situated with the show, making sure we say hello to everyone in the comments. Thank you for everyone who's watching with us live. So great to have you all here. Let's make sure I tag our usual suspects, because I want to make sure that they show up for this one tonight. We have some interesting stuff to talk about, to say the least. Hey, Barbara. I know Barbara's here.
Hi, babe.
What was I gonna say? They
See, my good friend Bill Powers is watching. Hi, Bill.
Hello, Bill. Thank you for being here tonight. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of people I suspect are followers of yours now coming and watching the show with us, which is awesome, and I welcome them to our program, and we welcome them with open arms, and we are happy that they're here. So thank you for joining.
Hey, love my Castle Crew followers.
We love expanding. We love expanding on our little follower base. It's awesome. So it's great to see. And yeah, like I said, you get to see Kevin all the time now because Kevin will be on both shows. Mitchell and I made the announcement on Wednesday that due to his personal scheduling constrictions, Kevin will now be doing this dance with me all the time. So this is it. You're looking at the Smoke and Tobacco show and the Spare Notes show team right here. I know that one of the things no one mentioned, as you know, my grandfather isn't here tonight. He had taken some time off. Coop is not with us, so he's got some stuff going on. He couldn't make it, which is fine. So it's just gonna be me and Kevin tonight. Coop's not running late or anything. He's doing some other things, and but that's okay. We still have some things we're gonna talk about, and it's been an interesting couple of weeks. Especially this week in particular. In the last 48 hours, I saw two
Yeah, it's
things.
been a little wild.
So two
There's
things.
like some two major well, not I wouldn't say major announcements, but I mean kind of things that are a big deal in the litigation forefront.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it. We also, we'll talk a little bit about the Funete y Padron project, which has now been delayed, and I'll talk about why it's been delayed. And I'll also get into. It looks like Coop had some feedback, and he's not here, obviously, to say this himself, but I will, in his absence, I will deliver the message that I saw him trying to deliver in a Facebook post on his own yesterday, which I stood by his side and helped defend with because I understand where he's coming from. So I want to make sure that I also clear the air on that topic as well. And then, we'll get into a couple other little things, some tidbits of information and kind of what we have going on here. So, but Kevin, what are you smoking right now?
I am smoking the Four Kicks Mule Kick Limited Edition 2023.
Oh, nice. I have a box of these short Chateau Fuentes Robustos that are nice. They're natural and they're a good mild medium bodied cigar. It's a nice just starter for me. I hadn't smoked all day today, so I was smoking that before the show, but I have some Tatuaje, some Drew State lined up for me for later in the show, so just really excited for those. And I'll get into those in hopefully a short while. This cigar is not going to last me too long, so
This is only my second one for the day, which is ironic for me on a Saturday. It's like I got up this morning and what did I have this morning? I had a crema this morning, and then
nice.
then we had a little bit of shopping to do, and then I had some new electronics that I had to install in the Jeep. So was out in the garage for several hours doing that, and here we are.
Well, I was gonna say you're really into the Jeep lifestyle now. I mean, ever since you guys got that thing, it's that's been your life now. It's just been you guys are all about the Jeep now. To people who don't know, you don't have a Jeep, you have a Jeep Gladiator. So you have the pickup version of the Jeep, which is something that you'll have, and you're much older than me, you'll probably remember. From what I understand, there used to be a Jeep Gladiator back in like the 80s, the 90s maybe.
I think it was actually older. I think it was even before that. The
that was
original
short-lived, if I remember correctly. And then a couple years ago, the new Gladiator has come back, and it seems
it came
like it's
back
more
out in
popular
18.
now. Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's it's a short bed. It probably not as functional as a pickup truck as like an F-150 or a Ram 1500 or something like that, but it serves the purpose if you need a truck, and it'll literally do everything that a Jeep Wrangler will do. We go out and off road and do some rock climbing and everything, and hang right with the guys that have the built up four-door Wranglers. So it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean and I know you guys do a lot of desert stuff. I mean, you live in Las Vegas, so you're in the Mojave Desert area, so there's a lot going on down there that for you guys to really go out and drive and explore. I mean, you guys got all that land out there, so you got all that space. Here in New England, we have some, but not like what you guys have.
Yeah, there's a lot of history in the desert here too. I mean, we have there's a trail system that's set up that kind of follows some of the original like wagon trains from back in the pioneer days. It's called the East Mojave Heritage Trail, and it's actually a 3-segment loop that it starts and ends in Arizona, and it's actually pretty cool. I mean, it has there's areas on there that there's literally preserved wagon tracks and hoof prints and whatnot that you can actually see, and old abandoned mines and abandoned cabins, and it's neat, the stuff that you can see out there.
Yeah, I'm into that stuff, and believe it or not, I've actually watched a lot of videos like over the years of like people who actually go out in that area, and they look for abandoned mines, and they they go to the Red Rock Canyon, and they go in the mountain areas, and they all that sort of stuff. And I have to say, It is very cool and intriguing. And I get excited just watching it. I'd love to go explore it. And every time I come out there, and I've gone out to Vegas hundreds of times, and still do. And every time now, I have Kevin Barber there, and I'm always like, oh, I always want to try to find the time to go out there early, because I always have to go for a trade show or, something's going on. And I always wish I could find the time to go out there early so that I could do like shit like that, like like Las Vegas strip stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't worked into my schedule yet. But one of these years I will, and it will be cool.
Yeah, you need a solid 3-4 days out here before the trade show or after the trade show or what after. Just probably after would actually be good, because that way we can just kind of unwind and relax after busting our asses on the trade show floor for several days.
That's true. That's true. I tried the going in early and doing other things before the trade show, and it got me all flustered because I got too relaxed and I lost my focus going into the show. And that was last year when we went in early to get married and all that. You guys were at the wedding, and it was all awesome. And then it was the show showed up, and it just kind of felt like, I don't know. But to be fair, Nicole got sick, which we could not foresee coming. There was only 2 of us back then, and we were not, so things are much different now. So I don't think that would probably happen again. We have fail safes in place in case we lose a member, because there's 5 of us now. So I don't think it would be as drastic. But you're right. I mean, after it's still great because we can get it done and then be like, all right, I don't have to worry about that shit anymore. So like, let's go do this.
It's done, and it's time to have fun and relax.
I want to, you know what I want to do? I've always wanted to do, just because it would be badass. I'd just love to go out to the dunes in like a side-by-side and just, rip through the sand. That's what I'd love to. I mean, what you do with the Jeep is cool too. But like, but I'm talking about, like, high speed going through the dunes in the sand in a side-by-side. Oh, man.
You can do that in the Jeep, bro.
That's true too. You could do it in the Jeep.
You're right. Yeah, we've
actually
had some fun roosting in the berms and stuff like that. It's like, I'm actually amazed. I mean, it's obviously it's heavier and probably a little tippier than a side-by-side, but I mean, you can still rip through, 55, 60, 70 miles an hour through the dunes.
The thing is too, you see these commercials for like Jeeps and like certain pickup trucks. Like I have a Chevrolet Trail Boss, Silverado Trail Boss edition.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a Silverado, but it's a little bit different. It's geared and advertised and marketed more towards like the off-road feel. And it's funny because you see the commercials for them, and they're always like ripping through mud, and it's like, oh, the Trail Boss and it's off-road capability, and it's like, but no one ever does it. You know what I mean? Like no one, like everyone just drives it on the road. You know what I mean? So it's like, the one thing with you and the Jeep was like, well, you actually use the Jeep for what it was made to do.
Yeah, it is no longer a beauty queen. I mean, it's only a couple months old, and it's got trail rash and scratches and shit all over it, but it's being used for what it was intended to be used for. So,
I think it's safe to say that, I mean, your last ride was pretty cool, but do you think you've had a lot more fun with the Jeep than the last ride?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barb and I were actually talking about it, and we agree that, I mean, I've had, 2 BMWs, and I mean, we really like motorcycles as well. And we both agree that this thing we've had more fun in the short time that we've had this probably than we've ever had with the BMW. Had an M4 convertible. Basically like just
badass.
Step under a supercar. And this is still more fun. I mean, it's just, you can do more with it. The Jeep people that we hang out with, I mean, it really reminds us of the cigar world. It's a tight-knit community, and it's just, it's a really cool group of people, a lot of fun, and you're never alone. So
now, here's a question.
It's cool.
Do you always do the driving, or do you let Barbara behind the wheel too?
I always do the driving because she doesn't want to.
Does she not want to, or are you afraid?
She doesn't want to. I've tried to get her to drive.
All right. Barbara, don't be shy.
They even have like the Jeep groups that we have here. They have ladies runs. I told her, friggin' hop into the Gladiator and go with the girls and go out and have a run. She goes, I'm a passenger.
I can hear her saying it too. Like, I am a passenger. I just sit and enjoy the ride.
And that's it. But hey, you know what? If that's her deal, if she enjoys it, it's like, I like having her along, and we go out and enjoy. I mean,
I could just picture
she
Barbara being out there just with her cigar, just with her phone out, maybe making some videos, just being like, I'm just here. I'm just hanging.
and that's it too. I mean, rock crawling with a cigar in my hand. I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great day. It's a great day doing this shit. I mean, I never did stuff quite like that. I mean, I always had dirt bikes and stuff growing up, so like I used to always be out and riding those and just doing shit like that. I mean, I'm up in the Northeast, so it's it's more foresty up here. So like we did shit out in the forest, but
I grew up in Northeast Ohio, so I know exactly what
right,
you're talking about. I'm
right.
just not allowed to have a dirt bike anymore because I have a throttle control problem. It's like, yeah, I can. It's like, oh, I can jump that, or that doesn't look, too hard, or whatever. And the next thing you know, I'm in the hospital with broken ribs and a broken leg. And
Yeah.
at my age, that shit takes forever to heal now.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta be careful. You gotta look out for that shit, because you feel young on the inside, but your body's like, no, I can't do this.
Exactly. Your body's like, what the fuck are you thinking?
So anyway, let's talk about who we have on board with us here tonight. We have once again our good friends from SD Dupont. That's right, Be Exceptional. We both are using our Defi Extreme lighter. Actually, no, you don't have a Defi Extreme, do you? What do you have? You have the MegaJet.
I got the MegaJet.
You got the MegaJet, and I have the Defi Extreme with the two jets in the petrol blue matte finish, exclusive to the USA. This came out this year. Kevin's got the MegaJet, another awesome lighter. I want to take a moment. I talked about this on the Smoking Tobacco Show, but I want to reiterate it here again too. Just a shout out to JJ. Thanks for your comments and feedback on the Dupont lighters. Glad that we could help you make that purchase, and glad that you are happy with it. So thank you very much. And as always, just as a reminder, you can always head to smokingtobacco.com for more news, reviews, and updates from the cigar industry, as well as you can write to us and contact us and send us a message if you have any questions, comments, or any other feedback you'd like to give us. You can always go there and send that to us. That comes right to us. We read every message. So just as a reminder. And while you're at it, make sure you like and subscribe on all of our social media and our YouTube channel, and everywhere you can find your audio download podcasts on all of the audio download podcast platforms. So
that was a cool email to get from JJ, to where, actually thanking us for, introducing them to that, and actually, inspired a purchase. I mean, we'd love to hear things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really, I was really happy to hear that. I just ashed all over the place. It makes me personally happy too when I see and hear that, our show or us just help, influence people to, make purchases and things that, add to their enjoyment of cigars and their smoking experience. It just makes me feel like, hey, like we did our job. You know what I mean? We're out here every day. We do this show. We put out our stories, our articles, our cigar reviews. We do all of that stuff for all of you. Excuse me. I had too much ash to just ignore this. I had to.
And that's one thing that you can definitely, trust with us too, is, I mean, we're honest. It's like we're not influenced by sponsors, by brands, by friendships, whatever. I mean, if you have a product and, there's an issue with the product, or we have a bad experience with the product, we're going to tell you. If I smoke a cigar and it's not a good experience with the cigar, when I write the review, it's going to reflect in the review. So,
Absolutely. We have a level of professional integrity that we have here. We do our best to be as accurate as we can and give you the most honest opinion. You'll notice that from all of our reviews, like Kevin said. There's I know people read them and they, some people will tell you like, oh yeah, reviews don't mean anything. It's like, but the same guy who says reviews don't mean anything is the same guy who's like, well, they gave it an 82. Maybe I shouldn't buy it. So I do know that. I do know. I mean, you know what I mean. But I know that there's people out there that read that stuff and and they take it for what it's intended for. A purchase recommendation, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. So, if there's a product or a cigar that we don't feel is up to par, we're not going to be shy about it. We're going to tell you, and if the manufacturer doesn't like it, which from time to time they don't, and when something like that happens, we'll tell them, hey, it's an honest review. I can't just say everything's great. No one would believe us. So that's.
I mean,
that's
I've received phone calls, from brand owners that thought that their cigar was well underrated, and it's like, well, this is why, and it's my thoughts.
Oh, I've gotten those calls too. They're great, aren't they? You're just like,
They are, but I mean, that's the beauty of it is, it's all subjective. So, so and so may have had a better experience with it. I may have got the 3 bad ones out of the box. It's just one of those cases.
Yeah. I mentioned on the show on Wednesday that we're going to be moving soon. Nicole and I just bought a nice new house in New Hampshire, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I'm like already like going through my mind like, oh, the moving that has to happen with just our regular crap, and then it's like, oh, and then there's this whole other thing that I have to move, and it's arguably in itself just as aggravating as moving just everything else that we own, and that is all of the cigars and all of the liquor. Because not only do we have a massive collection of cigars, we also have a pretty big selection of liquor in the house. And it's not because we're alcoholics, but we just, we also love bourbons, we like tequilas, rums, there's all wines, there's all sorts of stuff that we like to drink that we have all different stuff. We like variety. We're people of variety. And I'm like, oh, I got to move hundreds of bottles, thousands of cigars. I just hate moving. I hate it. It's aggravating. You know what I mean? You got to pack it all up, you got to get it there, unpack it.
The liquor's a hell of a lot easier to move than the cigars.
It is annoying, but it's a lot easier.
Cigars are a pain in the ass to move. I mean,
yeah,
I feel for you. I mean, Barb and I, within probably the next 2 years, have a coast to coast move coming with thousands of cigars. So I feel for you, and we're going to be living it and experiencing it here in the near future.
I mean, I'm talking about moving like 45 minutes. You're talking about moving 3,000 miles. So, I mean, I guess my problems probably don't seem as,
Hey, it also has to be, it still has to all be packed the same, man. It doesn't matter.
Nicole's like, what Matt's saying is a hoarder. No, that's, if you're going to use that label, it applies to both of us. So it's not like it's just on me. So don't play that card with me.
I was going to say, yeah, you guys are married. So,
yeah,
the hoarder thing, that kind of, guilty by association, so to speak.
I know. It's like, what the fuck? Mike, we're moving to New Hampshire. We're moving to the great state of New Hampshire. Live free or die. That's right. We're heading to the 603. It's a whole nother way of life up there, and very excited for it. I'm ready to, is what we call here in Boston, the Democratic People's Republic of Massachusetts, which means, it's very strict here. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of taxes. There's a lot of things that are illegal to do here, which is, annoying. There's a lot of useless taxes on things. People always bitch about, well, New Hampshire has higher property taxes. And when we actually sat down and did the math, and we talked to people who we already have family and friends who live in New Hampshire now. It's actually not as bad. When you actually sit down and you break down everything you spend money on in Massachusetts, it's like, yeah, I'd still rather live up there. So, it's just,
do they still have state income tax and all that and all those wonderful states up there?
So Massachusetts has state income tax, which I would still have to pay because I'll still work here, but the state of New Hampshire does not. So,
yeah, like us here, we don't have state or local taxes here.
The other thing about New Hampshire that's interesting, well, first of all, the big one, as we've talked about on the show before, there's no sales tax and there's no tobacco tax. So you buy then the shops that are in New Hampshire are also, everyone, everyone knows who they are. Everyone watches the show knows who the people are who own the bigger shops in New Hampshire. You know who they are. So you also know that they're pretty good people, and they charge pretty good prices too. So you're getting, good close to MSRP, plus no sales tax, no tobacco tax. So buying cigars in New Hampshire is also king. But it's also, in terms of alcohol, it's a controlled state. So while you can buy beer and wine at, grocery stores and stuff like that, the liquor is all state controlled. So we have, I think Pennsylvania and there's some other states that have this. People will be familiar that they're liquor controlled states. So all of the liquor stores are all what they call the New Hampshire State Liquor Outlet, whatever the fuck it is, which is cool.
Yeah, Ohio's like that. Out here, it's not. So you can go to the grocery store and buy whatever you want.
Right. Now that's how it is in Massachusetts, and there's pros and cons to both. I mean, when it comes to limited allocated stuff, most of it goes into just the big state raffle. So you just have to get selected for one of them. They do it for 4 times a year. It's quarterly. And Massachusetts, it's like the Wild West. You have to go hunt it down, and when you do, it's probably going to be an insane price. And
it's the same way here.
Yeah.
They have the stores that get the allocated stuff, and they're either going to they're going to do a lottery, and do one bottle at a time or whatnot, or they're going to put it out on the shelf at secondary pricing. So It just sits.
New Hampshire is interesting. So you sign up, and when it's you'll get the email. It's like every couple of months you get the email. Oh, the spring one, the fall one, the summer one. They do the raffle and the limited release, and you go on there, and there's a list of 40, 50 items maybe, and you can select 24. So everything Buffalo Trace makes. Not too hard to figure that out if you're up to date on stuff. Everything Heaven Hill makes. All the old Forester stuff, Parker's Heritage, and, Pappy, Buffalo Trace Antique, all the Wellers, all that stuff. All that stuff you guys all know. That's all on there. Then we've begun to see some Irish whiskeys and some Scotch whiskeys that are limited release that have made the list. I think they do one. I think they do a couple of other things that are non-whiskey. I think there's a rum on there. It's mostly whiskey, and it's mostly bourbon. But yeah,
well,
it's a list. Or rye, and rye's on the list.
Yeah, bourbon and rye is where the desirability is there. You see a lot of scotches and whatnot too. You're starting to see a little bit more of an influx of stuff that used to be, European only. That's becoming increasingly available here.
Yeah, you'll see Blanton's Gold, Blanton's Straight from the Barrel, which I know are usually not really heavily released in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Those are mostly foreign release, like you said. You'll see those on the list. The New Hampshire still gets some of those. Shout out to Ryan Beck. My boy Ryan Beck's back in the house. So Ryan, thanks for being here tonight. That's our inside joke. You just ignore that. I know he's laughing his ass off right now.
I'll have to get an explanation later.
Yeah, I will tell you that one. That's a work thing. He's a work friend. So yeah. But yeah, no. So they do get that. The other thing that's interesting about New Hampshire because of that is for example, Kurt Kendall. Kurt Kendall, owner, 724. He also has the shop Twins up here. And he has 2 locations. One of them has a bar that he calls the 724 Lounge, which is awesome. We hang out there 15, 20 minutes from our new house. I'm also 10 minutes from one of the 2 guys' smoke shop locations now, which is awesome. I know Dave sent me an email when I told him, hey, we're moving up to New Hampshire. He sent me this email. He was like, welcome to the 603. You're going to love it here. Live for your die. He was all excited. Then he was like, oh, by the way, I heard there's a really awesome shop that's near your house in Nashua. I was like, yeah, I might have to go check that out. Yeah, so I know Kurt at the bar, he does a lot of bourbons and he does a lot of tequilas and rums. And he does a lot of picks, and he's really into it too. So he has, I don't know if he has any left, unless he got another barrel. But last year he got a barrel. He got his own pick of Weller Antique 107, and he labeled it as a 724 barrel pick. And I remember him telling me about how the process works with New Hampshire. So I believe if you're a bar owner in Massachusetts, when you get that barrel from the distillery, they'll send you the whole pallet of, whatever the bottles are. If it was 150 bottles, whatever that is, in case they'll just send you the whole pallet of, this is all the bottles that came out of that barrel, and they send it to you, and that's it. In New Hampshire, because it's still controlled, the state will actually hold on to that, and they'll release like a certain amount to you at a time. So like, Kurt, I'm just using random numbers. So like it'll be
So
like,
wait. So your own barrel, the state only lets you get so many bottles of your own barrel.
correct. Now what they do
Wow.
is it's still yours, and you're entitled to it because you've paid for it, obviously. But because of the way that the state laws work in New Hampshire with the liquor control, they'll keep it in their warehouse. So they'll say, all right, we'll you can have like 3 cases like to keep in the bar, for stock, and then as you run down, you can request more to come back out. From what I understand, because I remember there was a situation where he actually told me, we were at PCA in 22, and we were hanging out and we were talking, and I remember him saying like, oh yeah, there was a situation where someone had texted him and said, oh, I saw your Weller 107 724 pick on the shelf in the store, and he was like, what? That's not supposed to be there. So there was a mix up there or something, and they actually put some of his 724 picks on the store shelf, and he had to go and fight that back. So yeah, they actually will retain that. So even if you're a bar that's selling by the pour, they'll hold, and you have your own pick, they'll hold the majority of the barrel for you, and they'll let it out. So that way you don't get the whole thing at once. They won't do that, which I also thought was interesting. But that's how they do it.
I would not trust that at all, because for the exact reason that you just said, it's like, gee, how did that end up on a shelf?
Yeah, so that is, I mean, we don't own a bar, so excuse me, that's not really a concern I have, but at least for myself. But I sympathize with those who do, because that does, I would be pissed. I'd be like, I mean, I paid for that, so.
Well, I know the barrel pick thing, that's really starting to pick up in popularity too, with like whiskey clubs, and I know there's some cigar groups and whatnot that do their own barrel pick. I actually have a bottle. I have a bottle here of Rebel that was a barrel pick with Alec and Bradley from Alec Bradley Cigars. They actually picked this to pair with their Black Market cigar. So
nice.
I mean, it's actually really cool to. It's a new thing, a new way, and I mean, it's if it's a harder to obtain bourbon, or something that's a little bit more on the special side, at least you guarantee you're going to get it, if you buy the barrel.
Now it's funny, you mentioned the Rebel, and the Rebel Yell brand is what that is. And it's funny, that's one of those brands that was they've changed in the last several years. And I feel like they're doing some other stuff, and they're getting a little more popular. But I remember there was a time when Rebel Yell was like the same as like Old Granddad. It was one of those like legacy brands that was a good value, and most people glazed over it. Maybe like the old timers grabbed it, or really craft connoisseurs that knew about it. I used to drink a lot more of it. I used to drink a lot of Rebel Yell back in the day. I've gone through several bottles of that, and then I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about it, and then I kind of stopped drinking a lot in the last like year or so. No real reason why. I just kind of took a break, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just took a break from a lot of heavy, not heavy. Like I was never a heavy drinker, but I just even just when I'm at home like kicking around, I just haven't been drinking as much. And but I remember I used to drink that all the time, and then I started noticing that they were like coming out with like all these other iterations, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. But Rebel Yell is actually what the Rebel Yell Billy Idol song was named after, and there's a story for those who don't know, that Billy Idol was with, I think he was with Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, and he may have been with some other folks. I don't remember, but I remember Keith Richards, and they were drinking it, and in their drunken, whatever state. I mean, you're hanging out with Keith Richards, of course, you're going to be having a great time, especially when you're just hanging out, drinking, probably doing other drugs, and making music. I mean, I can imagine for Billy Idol that was a great time. But that's how they came out with the idea for Rebel Yell, which went on to be a song that most people know. So actually, yeah, it does come from that. But yeah, anyway.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you can look it up. It's online.
And this is a really good whiskey too. I was actually able to try it when we were in Florida for the Lizona Palooza. One of the guys came in, Caribbean Cigars, and had a bottle. So it was cool to be able to try before you buy. But it's like, now that I have it, it's like I'm glad I got a couple bottles, because it's one of those ones that you're always going to want more, and you can't get it.
Yeah. And it's funny. I had this conversation. So last weekend I was down. I want to give a shout out to Vintage Cigar and Lounge in Westerly, Rhode Island. I was down there and I was hanging out with the folks down there. We went down there for my 30th birthday weekend. We went down with some family and friends to Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods, the casinos in Connecticut. But they're actually really close to Westerly, which is right over the border of Rhode Island. So a lot of times when we go down there now, we always stop in at Vintage, and we were actually hanging out, and I was having a great conversation. They have a nice bar there. They have some great stuff on the bar. And I was talking with Jesse, one of the owners, and we were hanging out, and we were talking about it, and I was like, I'll be honest with you, I've really, enjoyed going through and, finding new spirits, because, I'm a whiskey guy first, bourbon guy pretty much mostly. But I do enjoy rums, tequilas, and I like finding different ones. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of great stuff out there. There's rare stuff, there's hard to get stuff, there's expensive stuff. Some of it's overpriced, some of it's overrated, some of it is good, and I still hunt it out because I personally enjoy specific things. But of course there's other stuff I like too, and a lot of the Maker's Mark stuff. The old school regular Maker's Mark is my go-to everyday bourbon that I mix with, maybe with some Coke, do like a whiskey Coke, or I'll make a cocktail with. One of my other things I like to do now, I learned from Michael Capolini, was I like to mix a little Di Serono in with my bourbon too. Sometimes with some Coke, sometimes just the two, and it's kind of nice. It sweetens it, and the Maker's Mark already has kind of a sweeter mash, so they really marry nice together. But even like the 46 and some of the other little stuff that they've done, that's just a great distillery, and all that stuff, it's not hard to find, and it's not overpriced. You can find it anywhere. It's solid,
Oh, it is. Even going back to the old Granddad that you were talking about, the old Granddad 100 proof bottled and bond, and old Granddad 114.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inexpensive, but the price on that stuff's starting to go up, because now it's starting to be hard to find.
Can you imagine?
You got to pay a premium for it.
Can you imagine a day when somebody goes into a liquor store and they're like, "Do you guys have any old Granddad?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's like $300." And you're like, "What? $300 for old Granddad?" It's a fucking $15 bottle. Like, come on. My old Granddad drinks old Granddad. Come on. You know what I mean? But I if things don't change with bourbon whiskey, you never know. You never know.
The secondary market in social media has destroyed. I mean, it's enhanced the bourbon market, but it's also destroyed it, because you can't get stuff for a reasonable price anymore. You just can't.
Listen, all I know is George Thorogood taught me long ago that I drink alone, and sometimes I drink with my dear old Granddad. Sometimes I drink with my buddy Johnny Walker with his buddies Black and Red. For those who know that song, it's a great song. Whenever I hear that song, I always think, oh, that's my song that reminds me, I gotta grab some old Granddad. I haven't had that in a while. I'm like, oh yeah, old Granddad.
It's good stuff, and it's cheap, but it's good. I mean, that's definitely a whiskey you can drink every day and not be disappointed.
Did you also know that Old Granddad is a reference to Basil Hayden.
I want to say I did know that, but
You did.
I don't know where I heard it from.
Oh, okay. All right, maybe. Yes.
I heard it mentioned on. I think I heard it on like one of the whiskey shows I was watching on the tube.
Yeah, so the Old Granddad is actually supposed to be the man known as Basil Hayden, which I didn't know until probably like a year ago, and I always I'm like, oh, I wonder how many other people actually realize that, because it's not, I don't think it's something that most people would pick up on. So I just remember I was blown away, like, oh really, oh that's interesting, I never would have thought that. So that's our interesting tidbit of whiskey information for tonight, I guess. Actually, that's
So
two facts.
we actually have some cigar news to talk about.
We do. I know. I got carried away. We have some very interesting things to talk about. So specifically, let's go with the legal stuff first. We had a couple of things come across. Actually, one of them came across our desk. One of them happened on social media, and I haven't really done anything about it yet because it's not really a big enough thing. I'm just kind of watching it to see how certain manufacturers respond to it. The first one came from, and I've spoken to the parties on both sides of this. So yesterday, it was yesterday. I was contacted by Arnold. I think it's pronounced Seraphine. I think that's how you say it. It could be Seraphine. I'm horrible with pronunciation. Anyone who follows me knows. I am. But he reached out to me. He's a retailer from Tampa, who makes some of his own cigars and stuff. And he was claiming that he has a trademark on a brand that he claims, and he fully accused Fratello cigars of actually trying to steal his copyright, or infringe on his copyright, and that they were trying to get a name that was, while not identical to the letter, very, very similar trademarked. Which I originally, and I want to clarify this, I originally reported that a lawsuit was filed, but I misinterpreted what the email he sent me was. And he actually clarified he has not filed a lawsuit yet. But it sounds to me like he's made some attempts to contact Fratello. According to him, he's tried to contact Fratello about this dispute, and he claims he got nothing. He has heard nothing back. It's been radio silence, and he wants to protect his brand. So he's pretty much alluding that he may try to take further action to protect his trademark. I've also spoken to Omar De Frias, owner of Fratello Cigars, who has completely denied all of these allegations. In fact, Omar said, that this is not true, and there is no declined trademark. Arnold had said, Fratello had applied for a trademark for a name that was very, very, very similar, and that trademark was declined by the United States Trademark Office, which Omar has said is not true. So there's a little bit of a thing going on here now between these two, and I'm not sure what's really going on. I can only report on what each side has given me, but that is kind of where they're at right now. And Kevin, I know you read this story, and we talked a little bit about this, but
it's just an odd one to me because it's like I understand the guy wanting to protect his brand and whatnot, and if it goes down to the back to when the FDA was pushing to anything created prior, I forget what the cutoff date was it 16?
Yeah, substantial equivalence.
Yeah. So I can understand where it was done maybe with that, but I can also just from my standpoint, I can't see somebody confusing a local source brand from Tampa with an international brand like Fratello. I can't see a confusion there, but that's just me.
So the two names that are in question here. So Serafin de Cuba Cigars accuses Fratello of trademark infringement on his brand La Floridana. I believe that's how you say that. La Floridana. And he claims that Fratello is has begun to market and file a trademark for a name called La Floridan. So while not the same name, it's one letter short. And Omar has personally talked to me on this and said, no, that's not true. Like, you know, I don't have a trademark that got declined, and so he completely denies these allegations from the other side, and I'm not sure where this will lead, but we do have two people who are pretty unhappy with each other right now over some trademark stuff, and
I mean, it could be an interesting one. I mean, the big guy versus the little guy and that kind of thing. And I mean, not take anything away, from the existing trademark. I mean, if it's his trademark, it's his brand, it's his name.
Arnold's actually here with us
And
tonight.
it is what it is, and it's it's like I can see both sides of it. I really can. So
yeah, I mean,
it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
so Arnold's actually here with us tonight, and he said my brand is La Floridana, and it is a national brand. All right, so thank you for the clarification on that. Fratello, and then he also says Fratello's application has been denied by the U.S. Patent Trademark Office. So which we, and again, and I said this to both sides. Okay, when you bring something like this to my desk, I'm gonna go if you're accusing somebody of whatever, which is fine. It's not that I won't write on it, but I'm gonna go to the other side before I put the story on and be like, hey, so someone is saying this. Do you have a comment on this? Because I feel that that's fair. I don't just put hit pieces out on people one-sidedly because I don't want it to come across like we're taking a side, and so I try to be fair. So I went to Omar and I said, hey, I go, this came up today, and we're considering this for a story, and I wanted to make sure I got a comment from you first. And he said, no, I disagree. That's not true. So he denies these allegations. He says that his application was not denied by the U.S. Patent Trademark Office. So that's currently where we're at. That's the information I have, unless Arnold has anything else he wants to share with us right here in the comments, which is fine.
Well, I know it's not the first time that we've come across this in the industry, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last. I mean,
no.
Especially substantial equivalence. I mean, there was a shit ton of names out there that were trademarked and set up as brands prior, just to make sure that there was going to be cigars to sell. Had the the FDA's substantial equivalence requirement gone through,
right?
So I mean, I can definitely see. I mean, if I 100% understand somebody paying the money and going through the push-ups and the hurdles to get a trademark on a brand name, I can 100% see him wanting to protect it. So, and I can 100% respect that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I look, at the end of the day, I understand people want to protect their brands, but it's a business. It makes people money. Like, you have to protect it. I no matter who it is or what the situation, I get it. I do. I don't have like any like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, no, if you have a brand to protect, 100%. I understand. And I'm not like a super expert on it. Like some of these companies, you got bigger companies with, the company name, and then you get all these like brand names below with different stuff you got to protect. There's a lot more moving pieces with these companies too. And every time you put out a new line that's got a name, and you got to trademark it and protect it, you can imagine it's a lot. So.
And I mean, and I think those two are definitely similar enough to where, I mean, I guess I could see some confusion.
Yeah. Sanj Patel is also with us here too. He said, I own lots of trademarks. If you don't have all as an individual class marks, it will go nowhere. So thank you for add that in too. Yeah, this is an interesting topic too, because we're also going to talk about something else that involves Pete Johnson. And Pete Johnson is really good with this stuff. I know, and he has a lot of experience with this stuff in terms of trademarks and trade dress, which is a whole nother separate thing. And I've had this conversation with him before, both on and off the air. And I know he knows a lot about this, and he actually was involved in another situation that doesn't just involve him, but he was one of the first ones I've noticed as a manufacturer to bring up, and I'm going to talk about it in a second. I'm glazing through these comments really quickly just while we're on this topic. Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, I'm just reading the comments here from folks. You can't. So Arnold also says you can't change a name or drop a letter on a trademark. And Sanchez said you can only protect it if it's and all have to have all in a class. Yeah, and I've gone through this myself. Because I filed trademarks myself, and I know that the way it works, for those who've never been through this process, the way it works is you have a name that you want to trademark, and then you have to say, well, okay, is this a business or is it whatever? So it's like I have a business. Well, in what category? So that, like Sanj has been saying, there's a class. So like for us, it was like for our name, for example, it's all right. So our trademark is under, I think it's like specifically it breaks it down, but I think ours is like digital, online based, and then there's like media and press, and then it's business, and it breaks down. So it has to be like, so for example, with Pete Johnson has had an ongoing battle with Monster Beverage Company, which makes Monster Energy drink, because he uses the name Monster for his Monster series, and they've told him, you can't do that. But so Pete Johnson owns that trademark within the category and class of tobacco products, handmade cigars. He has the right to use that name. They have the right to use that name on beverages and beverage products. And so that's kind of how, like, well, they own that trademark there, but he owns it here, and they both have their leg to stand on, but they have them filed in separate classes. So it has to be down. So like also to make it easier, if you're talking cigar manufacturer to cigar manufacturer, Arturo Fuente owns the trademark for Arturo Fuente, Opus X, Don Carlos, yada, 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 yada. So someone couldn't start up a boutique cigar brand tomorrow and say, I'm going to come out with a cigar called Don Carlos because that's what my grandfather was called, and I'm going to trademark that cigar. Well, you can't, because Arturo Fuente already owns the trademark within the cigar business for Don Carlos. So, but if you were, let's say, a winemaker, or you were maybe, I don't know, just some other kind of product, and you want to call it like the Don Carlos, as long as they don't also have the trademark in that class, you can have it, because it doesn't involve cigars and tobacco where they own the trademark. So, not to kind of state kind of the obvious, but I know there's some people who probably don't understand how that process works. So now hopefully you have a better understanding. That's kind of how it works. So that's what they're referring to when you hear those comments. And so one of the things I was going to mention too was, I'm going to kind of wrap this all into one big thing since it is very similar. One of the other things we saw yesterday was there's a brand of cigars out there now, and they kind of and I believe they come. I think they're all bundled, or they're in like cellophane packs. Not maybe not full bundles, and they're known as cigars or cigar fugazi. And they're marketed as cigars that are similar to existing brands that we all know, that are similar, but obviously they're not. So they're cheaper or whatever. So, for example, Pete Johnson posted on social media yesterday a photo of one of these bundles, and it says in small print below the name, compared to Tatuaje Miami Cabinet Brown Label. And so, while they're not calling it that, on the packaging it says compared to Tatuaje Miami, Cabinet. So they're printing Pete's names of his products on their packaging. And while they're probably not trying to say that, oh, well, we make Tatuaje cigars, they're inferring to you and also printing on their packaging like, oh, well, this cigar is, just like this cigar, and we're using and we're going to let you know by name. So that's another situation where, and it's not just Tatuaje. They have ones that, compared to Arturo Fuente, Opus X, compared to Padron, they have other ones like that. So, but Pete was kind of one of the first ones that, and I think I had seen this a little while ago, and I just kind of didn't think much of it. But I see that Pete has made a post about it now, and I know how Pete is with these things. I'm curious to see, what he does, because, like I said, I know he's usually really good with that stuff, and he doesn't miss an opportunity to protect his brand, to be honest with you, as he shouldn't. I mean, he has a right. I mean, if you're printing packaging and has Tatuaje on it, and whatever the context is, I mean, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's his protected name. Within
Yeah, there just seems
within
to
the
be
cigar
a like
business.
there just seems to be like there's got to be some kind of a legal issue with actually using somebody else's name on your branding.
Yeah. So that's what I want to see. I want to see how that one unfolds too, because, um, I'm curious to see how that. I think, in my opinion, and again, I'm not like that I'm taking sides, but I understand where Pete's coming from, and from the outside, if you asked me, if I was Pete and I owned Tatuaje, or I was, any one of these other brands, and like I was Perdomo, and they were like,
I'd
oh,
be pissed.
compare, if I was Nick Perdomo, and someone said, hey Nick, check out this bundle, they say that their cigars are just like Perdomo Habano barrel aged, sun grown, and it was on the packaging, I'd be like, well, why the fuck is my name on your bundle? That's my name. You can't print that. So I
Yeah, I mean, I would
understand.
think, saying it's similar to another famous brand or another boutique brand or something like that. I mean, that's okay. But actually going out and naming a brand, I just that to me, that's just not okay. I mean, I don't know what the legal ramifications are of that, or what the legal the, the legal stance is on that, but it just seems like not okay.
It's funny. So Sanj Patel is here. And anybody who knows or is familiar with him and his brands, I mean, he has a cigar, and while his packaging is a little bit different, you'll probably notice that some of the packaging on his cigars is very similar to the black and white with the dots of the famous Cohiba band. And I don't know if this is specifically what he's talking about, but he said in 1997 I won with Cuba Tobacco SA. Take a guess who that is. Because we had all classes in any and all tobacco / clothing / and anything at all you can put our logo on. And what's interesting about this is an interesting topic too, because what some people don't understand is also due to the Cuban embargo that the United States has, which is a federal law. That's why you can't buy Cuban cigars here in the United States. The Cubans, and the way I understand it, is that the Cubans are not legally entitled or allowed to hold trademarks for their branding in the United States because those products are not available here. Now, I know that there's, been the back and forth between Scandinavian and Habanos / Cuba tobacco over the use of the Cohiba name and some of the other stuff, which has gone back and forth. I think the difference there, and I could be wrong, but I think the reason why it's a challenge there is while those cigars are sold here, I think the fact that they are an international company that operates in areas where, even though those products are not available, I think that it makes them, I think it opens it up for to have them be liable legally. I'm not 100% clear on that, but I know at the base, that's why you see, non-Cuban counterparts of a lot of the Cuban names here in the United States. Is that those trademarks aren't really applicable to the Cubans because their products are not allowed to be sold here anyway. So, case in point, like what Sanj is talking about, like, yeah, like if you've seen his packaging, it kind of suits my point is, yeah, it looks like very Cohiba-ish, but he also is entitled to have that here because the Cuban Cohibas cannot be protected here in the United States. So, yeah, there's a lot of trademark stuff here tonight. This is a big. This has turned into a whole trademark show from so many different angles, and I'm glad so many people who are familiar with this topic have showed up to comment along because this really adds to the discussion. So this is really cool. I didn't anticipate all this, which is nice. Thank you guys for being here.
I've learned a lot from Arnold and Sanj. It's like I did not know a lot of what they're speaking of, so it is always good to learn.
These are the parts of running a business that I think people don't talk about a lot because it's such a background item that it's not really a public thing. It's always like that's done, in the back by lawyers and people like that. But these are things that every company that deals with every day. I mean, how many times do you think Coca-Cola, because again, I mentioned the word trade dress. So there's trademarks, which is the uses of names, official branding, stuff like that. Then there's trade dress, which trade dress would fall under, like, for example, Coca-Cola's red is a specific color that they own. They own whatever that color of red is. It's called like Coca-Cola red. And I know that because Nicole's dad is a printer, so he works, prints materials for businesses, and he works with inks and stuff like that. And he actually had told us, Coca-Cola owns like whatever that red is. That's like their red, and they own that. So that protected color of red that can be used as a branding, that would fall under what's called a trade dress, because it's not a name, but it's like another piece of branding that's not a name that can be protected. That would fall under a trade dress. So, and again, this is a discussion that I know Pete Johnson's had. He's talked a lot about the differences between trademarks and trade dress. I know he's dealt with this with the Monster series, and I know he's touched on this when comparing about the whole Monster Beverage thing, because, like Monster Beverage, for example, they have the name Monster trademarked in the beverage class. They also have their green, because their primary color is like that Monster green. That Monster green is a trademark trade dress. And so I think there was a piece of that where they told Pete, like, well, you can't use this green on your Monster series because you'd be making a product with the name Monster, but you're using our Monster color, which is a trade dress protected color. That's where it kind of gets a little complicated too. So,
and there have been cigars that have come out that, limited runs or boutique blends or something like that that I've seen, that have, an actual some other major international brand name on it. We're not going to name names, but
yeah,
we've seen that, and definitely have seen cease and desist letters issued for things like that. So,
well, it's true, and then you see a lot of stuff that comes out as like a one-time run. And they do these things, and then they get a cease and desist. And then, the reason why a lot of them do it, though, is because they're like, "Well, it was a one-time thing; it's already done, so I'm okay. You can't come after me." Which we do see a lot of, from not from everybody, but from time to time we do see that. So, and that's why you can do a limited. I mean, not that you can, but that's why people do it. They do it as, what if this is a one and done, and then by the time they figure it out, we can say we're already done, that we're not making it anymore, so it doesn't matter. You can't. It's not like it's still in production. So that's.
Yeah, I see a comment here on this from our buddy Riste. It says also brands that that use they law copy Havana branding are just lacking creativity. How many brands do you see look like Romeo and Julieta Partagas branding? He definitely has a valid point there.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up too, because I just as you said that was there, I had saw it, and then I was trying to read and process too. Yeah, let me bring that up on screen here.
And definitely want to say hi, Riste. Thank you for joining in tonight.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Also brands that use that law copy Havana branding are just lacking creativity. Yeah, I mean, part of it too is those names are recognizable. So Sorry, no, don't worry about the spelling. I follow you. I know what you're trying to say, but yeah, and I look, there's points on both sides of that. Like I understand, like there's a lack of creativity. At the same time, the other thing is those brands are so old and they're so easily recognizable. I can also understand well, we can capitalize on this because they can't have these trademarks here, so we'll take them and we'll make cigars with that name. I get it. I understand what he's saying. He's not wrong, but I also understand why people use them because, I mean, at the same time, look at, you ask people like, well, what do you smoke? And, you get what I like to call the more casual cigar smoker. Oh, I smoke Romeos and oh, I smoke, Monte Cristos and, because those are the names they know because their grandfather knew that name and those are the names that were popular back
Hmm.
when there were a lot less brands available, years and years ago, those were the brands. Now today it's different. Everyone there's so many boutique brands and mid-level brands and of course there's legacy brands too. But yeah, I mean I would
And I
say
mean, I totally see
both sides
Riste's
are
point
right.
too. I mean, you see many examples of that. If you walk into a B&M, I mean, you see that firsthand.
Right.
You know.
It's funny too. Is look who's using all of the legacy names, the biggest companies, Altus
Hmm.
USA, General Cigar. They're the ones using them the most. Um, Chad
Well, they
Sear,
have the
too,
money to crush and fight anybody that wants to challenge them on it.
and that's also a good point too. It's like if you're going to use the names, you got to be ready to spend the money to fight with it, because you know you're going to get challenged, so you got to be ready. I mean, if for perfect example, someone like Risty, was trying to use the name Partagas, and this no disrespect to him, but he's not Scandinavian tobacco, so he doesn't have like from what I know, he doesn't have like that money and a team of lawyers that can fight that fight constantly, like I know STG is, with them. So you kind of if you're gonna use the name, you have to have the firepower to keep it going. It's just kind of how it just makes sense that way. So yeah, there's a lot of this is I know it's kind of a dry conversation, but if you're into business stuff, it's an interesting conversation because it's stuff that kind of affects anyone who owns a business. It's day-to-day stuff that, and there's people here in the comments that deal with this. So,
One, it's
um,
easy to dig yourself a hole and misspeak on it too, especially if you don't understand like the full legal picture of it. I mean, you can get yourself in some deep shit and not even really realize you're doing it.
yeah, like, and there's a lot of stuff that happens day to day that people don't even realize, like, there's stories I've heard where, there's been people who have designed bands that have red on them and there's an X that's a part of the brand and the Fuentes have said you can't you can't have a red X on your band and I get it because the Opus X branding and the name it's trademarked, so if you put out a
Hmm.
cigar like that and I know there's people out there who don't like that fact, but they that's their right, they own that and that's a protected brand, it's a major brand, so they're going to protect that. That's it's a business. At the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to it's a business, and you have to protect a business too. You have to build a business. You have to take care of it. You have to make money. But
Hmm.
part of doing that is you have to protect that business, and that's what this is about. And I know that there's multiple sides, but I get it. At the end of the day, if someone owns a trademark on something and someone else comes along, they're they got to challenge that. It's just what you do when you own a business.
Yep. And if you don't challenge it, shame on you because you went through all the headache and all the aggravation to get the trademark. If you don't challenge it, then why did you bother in the first place?
Yeah, yeah.
So you
So
definitely have to defend your brand and defend your trademarks.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's funny, and I actually, and I do know this, and Arnold brings up a good. Altadas owns 50% of the Cuban cigar industry as well as the non-Cuban brand, so that's why they do have those. And that's why specifically with the ones that Altadas owns, you'll notice even the packaging is almost identical to the Cuban counterparts, whereas like the ones that General uses are not. Like the Cohiba brand that's here, that's distributed by General. You'll notice it's packaging wise, it's distinctly different than the Cohiba that's distributed by Habanos SA. Versus the Monte Cristos are pretty much identical on both sides. It's because of that connection that Altadis has with Cuba Tobacco. So, thank you for bringing that up, because that is a good point, and I did forget to add that in there, because that is true. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is too, another part of this conversation while we're here, I mean, we might as well throw it out there. Someday, the U.S. government could decide, like, hey, all right, it's time, and they'll end the Cuban embargo. So then what happens? Well, now legally, all those Habanos cigars are legally able to be sold here, and now those brands come to U.S. soil. So now you have to prepare yourself for, okay, what happens then? Well, what will probably...
Wouldn't they have to apply for a trademark?
And I'm not an expert on this conversation, so I'm doing the best I can to have this conversation, but I will disclaim I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer either, so I can't tell you with 100% certainty. But I think Risty made a comment here that he would lose his Behike trademark. Yeah, he made a comment here. Once that law passes, he will lose his Behike trademark. So I can't remember what reference that was to, but if it's what I'm thinking it was to, and if he's still here, he can comment. I believe if such time that happens, I believe that the Cubans have more of a leg to stand on with getting their trademarks back. Now, I have been told from some people in the business over the years that, one of the reasons, I don't know if this is 100% true, but someone once said something to me that one of the reasons why Habanos has really, you'll notice the branding on the Behike line. It went from being like a part of Cohiba, where it was like Cohiba, and then there was a Behike secondary band, and then they went to one band that had both names. The current iteration of the Behike band is similar but slightly different to the standard Cohiba band. And now it just says Behike, and it has the Indian head, and it's black and gold. It's not black and yellow, it's black and gold. And then on the back of the band, there's a small Cohiba word mark on the back of the band. I was told, and I don't know how true this is that this was something that Habanos started to do, so if they were not able to use the Cohiba name in the United States, they would sell Cohiba in the U.S. as the Behike brand in the United States. I don't know the full truth of that, if that is the plan. I mean, I know it is, as it stands now, Behike is technically its own kind of pedestal to the rest of the Cohiba brand. But that is an interesting point. If they weren't able to use the name, they kind of pivot to that, and in the U.S., Behike is this whole collection of the Cohiba cigars that we make everywhere else. I guess it makes sense to me. But again, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a full expert on this, so I can't say 100%. But it is an interesting concept to think about. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of these comments here. I'm just trying to follow along. I like when people comment too, because I like to hear feedback from the audience, and I like to include them in the show. Sometimes it's just hard because you get a lot of them, and you're like, I'm trying to stay on top of this at the same time. But yeah, this might be something I have to kind of circle back to. So, and do a little bit more research on, and maybe we kind of follow up. And the other thing is, Coop's not here too, and Coop's a little bit better on this than I am too. So I do like when Coop's here, because he can kind of chime in and either like correct something or explain something a little bit more to me that maybe I don't have 100% right. But I'm sure we'll probably follow up with this next time Coop's on the show. And I'm sure he'll have tons of feedback on this too. So I'm very interested to hear what he has to say. But yeah, those are like the trademark things that we've seen this week. To make a long story short, which I thought were interesting. They all kind of happened right at the end of the week, all at the same time. So, not really a new concept, but just some fresh stuff that's come up and happened.
So I think there was some additional cigar news. I think what did it come out yesterday about a delay from a very highly anticipated release.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about this because, and I think I have to pull up Coop's Facebook page too, because I remember he made a post about this specific issue in the context. So all right, so the news came out yesterday. The Funete y Padron project, which about a month ago, it was like just after Thanksgiving, maybe a little less than a month ago, we had gotten word from the Fuentes that the container with those cigars had left the Dominican Republic. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Had left the Dominican Republic, headed for Tampa. And so they had officially been sent out, and they were making their way to get to the warehouse to be distributed. They were on their way, so to speak. Great news. Everyone had been waiting, hey, when's Funete y Padron coming out? And, Carlito had said, hey, look, they're in the container. They're on their way. We're sending them out. So then we got word yesterday that now it's being delayed to 2024. And the reason is because that container, it appeared to be that it was damaged. And according to Carlito, it would appear that the container was dropped, which caused damage to the container, which also caused damage to the humidors inside. And my understanding is the outer packaging of the humidors had been crushed or smashed or, destroyed, and that even the wooden structure of the humidor itself, some of them were found to have splits in them. So, of course, and I don't blame them, the Fuentes had said, look, we need to take every single one of these apart and inspect it and see, how many are damaged, what is damaged, or what's salvageable. From there, you have to now go back to the box factory and say, all right, I need to replace these. We need to make these, get them sent up to Tampa to replace the ones in this manifest that were damaged. And I believe what they said they were going to do, if my memory serves me right, is they were going to wait until there was already scheduled to be a second container shipment of more of the Funete y Padron humidors to come up. And I believe that they're waiting until then to release all of them. And in the meantime, they're going to do some damage control with this. So that's disappointing to hear, Kevin. That's, you had all this hype and all this excitement. They finally go out and then, whoa, wait a minute, they're damaged. Which sucks, but, it happens, I guess. I mean, it's not the first time it's happened, but it does suck. I know it's disappointing for a lot of people.
It does. I mean, it's disappointing. I'm sure it's disappointing for the Fuentes, as well as everybody,
And
on the
Padrones.
planet that was anticipating that release to come out.
Yeah, I mean, and then the other thing was, and again, I'm trying to find this post that Coop made, and of course he's not here tonight, so, but I think it sounded like, yeah, here it is. He made this post, and he's not here, but I'm gonna defend him on this issue in his absence too. He made a post earlier today, and he said, since I have been getting criticism from a few, I'm going to address this. Back last month, I reported on the Funete y Padron cigars being shipped from the factory. To hear nonsense that we reported rumor and innuendos is pretty sad. Guess what? A release like this was worthy to report leaving the factory. Unfortunately, an act of God damaged the releases, and it did not make it to the stores. There was never anything misleading about the shipping story. I was very straightforward on this. I'm very proud of what was reported. Oh yeah, before you sling an arrow at me claiming rumors or innuendo, we had direct communication with the source on this, as we accurately reported. You might want to read the story instead of the headline. Classic case of shoot first, ask questions later. And he is right. He is right. I was in contact with Carlito himself when this happened too, as was Coop. I spoke with Carlito directly on the phone, and he told me everything that he told Coop. I packed these up. We sent them out Thanksgiving week. They're on their way. There was X amount that was disclosed that was put in there, and there's more coming. We're excited that they're being released, yada, yada, yada. And we reported on that. It came directly from them. They sent them out. Great. So, yeah, I mean, I know that this has been one of those stories that's been kind of a saga because it's been such a high-profile release, but he's right.
That came out, 2 years ago, right? That was announced.
PCA 2022 is when it
Yeah.
was first unveiled. I think officially to the public. It was teased before. It was unveiled at the show. Kind of sat quiet for a year. It was on display in their booths at the show this year. They weren't really talking about it, and then it was okay. Now it's going out, and then less than a month later, oh, now it's delayed. I can understand why some people who maybe don't read the articles all the way might just think like, oh, they said it, but they weren't right. No. This was a very confirmed story.
Well, with the caliber of the families that are involved in that, it's not going to be a bullshit news story to say that it's shipped. I mean, if they're saying it's shipped, it's shipped.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And, I know that there's a lot of attention on this, and I know people were eagerly waiting. But from what I know, and I've been very fortunate and very lucky enough to get to know Carlito very well, both on a business level and a personal level. I can tell you that he's, with being who he is and how he is, and with the company and everyone attached to it. He's really not one of those people to, on something especially like this, to just say like, oh yeah, we shipped him, and it'd be like, oh well, no, like no. I mean, if he shipped it, he shipped it.
Exactly.
These issues.
I mean, of course, you're going to have the conspiracy theorists, just like my good buddy Chad to Chad. Were they really in the container? Conspiracy theory. I mean, you're going to have that. I mean, probably the funniest conspiracy theory. I mean, there's nothing funny about this story. I mean, definitely nothing funny about the damage that was caused by an incident, act of God, or whatever. But one of the funniest ones that I've heard involves Coop. And that was the bet with him and Abe Dababna with signed currency over they're going to come out this year or next year. And that Abe had the power, and that Abe had the power to delay it, so he could win the bet. So, I mean, that was funny. I mean, it just,
that actually wouldn't surprise me.
You try to shed some light on a sad situation, and bring a little bit of lightness to it and lighten the mood a little bit. But I mean, the fact that they're damaged, I mean, that's a big freaking deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. It is. I know. It's a sucky situation, and I know there's a lot of people waiting. Now, one of the things I heard, this is a secondhand thing, but apparently it came from a comment that a retailer made publicly on social media. Sorry, I keep yawning tonight. I'm trying not to, but it just keeps happening.
Anastasia should keep you up too late at night.
Yeah, I know. She's sleeping now, thank God. But yeah, she's been waking up the last couple of nights. I think she's starting to really teeth, so it's those first few teeth are coming in, and it's really showing. But anyway. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah.
You're talking about retailer comments.
So I was told that a retailer made comments on social media. And again, this is all, I'm not saying that this is for certainty. This is like in the conspiracy theory realm still, okay? But there was one retailer who started this conspiracy theory that they were told that the MSRP on these boxes was going to be $10,000, and so
I read that post.
Did you? I didn't see it.
I saw that same post.
Okay, so I actually didn't. So you could probably speak to this a little bit better. But I from what I was told by the person who saw it, was that there was, now there's a conspiracy theory that they started to ship them, and then people were like, I don't want to have a $10,000 box in the store, and like now they're trying to pull it back. I don't think that's the case because there's enough people out there who will take that box because they will be able to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, for that box, I mean, 10K for that humidor and that box. If that's true, if that is in fact the MSRP, it doesn't freaking matter. They're gonna disappear overnight. They'll be gone.
There's not enough of them for them to. There's only look. This is a small release. They're not making tens of thousands of these boxes. Even at that price and the quantity that they're making, they'll pretty much there's enough people who will scoop them up across the country. I mean, if you said they were making a million boxes of them, it'd be like, well, okay.
Well, I mean, having seen that box firsthand at the trade show, I mean, I could see it. I mean, 10 grand is a shit ton of money for a humidor with cigars, but I mean, literally for the family heritage, the uniqueness that you're going to have if you own one.
The other thing too is, I have a lot of relationships with manufacturers, and there's a lot of discussions that happen privately about certain things that I won't really specifically get into here. But I have conversations with certain people from time to time about certain products that they have, or certain things that are just available at high quantities, quantities and at high price points, and they actually move more quantities of it than I think people would think. Without getting specific to any company and what what they're selling to who. Like, I've heard plenty of stories over the years of certain products that people sell, and they actually sell more of it than like on this thing, like people think, oh, they don't sell all those, are expensive, but the reality is that they actually sell a lot of them. And there's a lot of people, and the thing that people don't realize is there's still, there's hundreds of millions of people in this country alone. And as being, arguably the biggest, consumer of premium cigars in the world, there's a lot of people out there who have a lot of money who just spend it quietly, and they like to buy things. And, these things go. It's people are going to buy it. And there's enough people out there who will go, yeah, I'll pay $10,000 because I want this in my collection. It'll happen. I don't know.
Well, it's a plausible price for that too, because I mean, I know that Fuente has some other packages that are almost double that. So
yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that they do with Prometheus that's 5 figures. I mean, the Prometheus put out the Big B humidors. I think those went for $11,000, and I'm pretty sure most of those have sold. At least to the retailers who took them in. But yeah, I mean, those go for like that much. They have some of their limited edition humidors that they do with Prometheus. Where there's the humidor and it's full of the heaven and earth stuff. Like a couple years ago, they had the Purple Rain chest humidor, and you could buy it empty for like $3,000, or you could buy it full with like 100 Purple Rains, and it was like $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
People buy them. I mean, it's not out of the question. I mean, they sell. They do sell. So, I don't think that it's.
Well, I mean, think about the uniqueness of this humidor. I mean, with the Padron family and the Fuente family. I mean, let's just say just using like $100. Well, just using $100 price point for cigars. So I mean, you've got 40 cigars in there, 100 cigars. Okay, so $6,000 for the humidor and $4,000 for the cigars. That's not out of the realm of possibility if you split it up into the $10,000. So
yeah, and like that's why I brought up the whole Prometheus thing, because it's kind of like the closest similar thing, where you have a humidor, you get incredibly rare cigars that are with it. So yeah, to your point, yes, it makes a lot of sense. So I don't think that's a conspiracy theory I would rule out, because I don't think that's as much of an issue as I think people think it would be.
I don't think it is either. I mean, it's out of the realm of like anything that I would ever be able to buy, but they'll disappear overnight. even at
They will.
$10,000 a piece, if that is in fact the price point, which we are not saying it. We're not saying that that's what it is. We're just saying we read a post that implied that. So
Yeah. So again, it's just the rumor mill, and that's one rumor that we heard, and I'll discredit that one right there. But yeah, so we don't know exactly when those are going to be released. We were told 2024. I'm going to estimate. I mean, if they were already on queue to ship and they were shipped from the factory, I'm gonna go on a stab here, and I know a couple other people kind of have said this exact same thing too to me in private conversations. But given the timeline of events and the timeline of events for 2024, at this point, they could just hold on to it. Go through it, check them, take their time, replace what they need. Get their next shipment in here, make sure that one makes it safe, and they might wait, and then maybe around PCA, when people show up in Vegas for PCA, they say, all right, Funete y Padron is in the U.S. and they're ready to go. They're all safe now. All right, we'll let them go, and they might let them go then.
yeah, ship at the conclusion of the show.
That I could see. I mean, if they were already sending the first batch up, and they were already committing to letting them to go out for the holidays. And if they're going to delay it to 2024, if they don't ship like right away, which they might not do like right at the beginning of the year, I could see them waiting until, all right, well, PCA's coming up. It's a hot time. We'll dump them then. It's a great time. By the time, logistically, we get them out, stores will get them. They'll get them right before, like Father's Day or whatever. Maybe. That's...
Well, they would land in the stores literally right in like hot season for
Correct.
the B&Ms where they're going to be at. So, I mean, that would make sense.
Correct.
I mean, obviously, if they would have landed for the holidays, I mean, that would have been ideal. But shit happens. It didn't go down. There was an incident. The next plausible one would be PCA.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
I mean, they might not
logical.
even be able to. They may not even be able to arrange, new packaging by then. Because I think that's going to have a larger impact on when they're going to become available again. Is the packaging that was damaged, when can you get it replaced? As I know, just from hearsay and talking to people in the industry, that the packaging is still an issue. Getting supplies and getting packaging. So,
that's an issue everybody has. I mean, there's no question.
And something as unique as that, it's multiplied tenfold.
And especially during this time of year too. I mean, you're talking about the other thing you have to take into consideration is, so, let's say I think there was like 300 something boxes that were in that container. Let's say let's just say 100 of them were damaged, and they got to make new ones. Okay, 100 boxes might not sound like a lot to you, and it might not take them forever to make them, but you have to take into consideration that in the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua, where a lot of these products are made, these factories shut down for several weeks for the holidays because that's how those countries work. They're not like us, where like we work on Christmas Eve. No. They stop working for like a couple of weeks around the holidays, and that's family time. That's what those cultures do. So you're talking about 100 boxes that need to be replaced. They might not know. They might still be sorting through that container. So let's call it, you find out next week. Factory's closed now for the next couple of weeks. So now you're talking about January. People come back to work. Now you have to start production on 100 boxes, and you have to get them done. Then you're going to get them packed back up, and then you're going to get them shipped up here. And then they have to make it, and then they have to all be inspected to make sure now those are good to go. And then, yeah.
That's a 3 to 6 month timeline, easy.
You look at it, and it does. It adds up, and it starts to make more sense. Like, oh, okay, this is not going to be like, oh, well, let's make, 100 more boxes, and we need them right away. Like, we'll have them up there, next. No, that's not going to happen.
They could realistically be delayed till next fall.
They could. They could.
I mean,
Could
in
be
all
longer than
reality, I
PCA.
mean, those humidors are so special that it very well could be delayed till next fall.
It's not a raw stock box where like they
No.
cut some wood and they all right, there we go. I mean, which
And you know they're going to get it right. I mean, they're not just going to have somebody, oh, I need these made, I need them made quick. No, it's not like that. It's like, I need these made exactly the way you made these other ones. And I mean, I have no idea how long those took to produce, but they're not. It's not your standard box, and it's not your standard, humidor either.
and
So
with the two companies' names that are on there, they're gonna get it right. They're not gonna fuck around.
100%.
You know, if it's not right, they're gonna say no. So it's gonna take some time. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's just it's the way it goes. You know, so Kevin's right. It could even be longer than PCA. You know, you don't know. Then that second container has to come. Who's to say that one doesn't get? I mean, you just you don't know. You don't know.
Well, they land when they land to give those cigars the respect that they deserve.
Rich Myberg's here with us tonight, which is awesome to see. Thanks, Rich, for being here. And he actually commented, if the humidor boxes must be remade, they will need some time for the wood to get the balance they need to house those very rare cigars. I saw those at the box factory last April. They need time, and that is what the Fuentes and Padrones are going to take as long as cigars are made in honor of Jose O. Padron and Carlos Fuente. That's true too. I have seen the boxes being made in the factory in the Dominican Republic. When I was there as well, I did see the production of those, and I've seen the way that box factory operates, and I saw them making those boxes. Yes, it's done with care. It's not slapped together. So he's right, and they're gonna wait on it. And both those companies, you know, you're talking about on a regular release. They're not gonna rush it. They're gonna take the time. On a release like this, like he mentioned, for how special it is, they're definitely not gonna rush this. They don't care.
No, not at all.
They don't care if people are waiting. They appreciate it, but they're like, at the same time, they're not gonna give into the pressure. If it means that they have to wait another 6 months, they're going to do it because they're not going to rush something to come out that's a piece of shit because they just wanted to get it out. They're like, we're going to make you wait, but when it does come out, it'll be worth it because we're doing it right. And that's the way it should be. Don't cut corners. That's the way it should be. So, yeah, who knows? Honestly, I said to Coop the other day, Coop and I were talking about this on the phone. I said, Coop, I think this, not that it's a bad thing, but the Fuente Padron release this is going to be like the saga of the decade for the cigar industry with this whole story. I mean, we're going on 2 years now, almost 3, and you know, cigars are still not officially available yet, and you know, we don't have a date of when they'll be on a shelf. And there's been ups and downs, and then there was quiet periods, and then I said this is gonna be like the story of the decade, just getting these cigars released. It really
Just
is.
wait, and then the stories that are going to happen after they do land.
Oh, I know. It's not even over yet. You know, even when you're right. Even when they do come out, you know. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, this is. I wish both companies the best. I mean, it's a very big deal. It's a very special release. It's very important. I think this is a historical thing, but in this industry. But yeah, I mean, it's wow, what a journey it's been. I lit up another one of these. I like these. Anyone who's a member of the Saints and Sinners Club, the Tatawahe Club, this year they sent out the bundle. Now, Kevin, what are these again? The short red ones?
That's the Jason, I believe.
Is it the Jason?
I believe it is.
Yeah, we got a bundle of these, a 10-count bundle of these in our SNS Club kits this year for 2023. It's a fantastic.
They're good. Yeah, I just lit up the El Mago.
Oh, really?
First time smoking this. It's actually a really good freaking cigar.
Yeah? Yeah. I haven't had that one yet.
This is my first, and this is definitely going to be. I just have one. This is going to have to be a revisit.
Now you put out a review recently Don Carlos, speaking of Arturo Fuente, you put out a review on the Don Carlos Eye of the Bull, which anyone who's interested in reading that, you can head to spokentobacco.com. You can read that review. Which, Kevin, what score did you give that cigar? I thought that was great.
That was a 91.
Yeah, that was a great cigar. It's the end of the year, so the team and I have obviously begun talking about, the list of the year and what cigars might rank where and who are the top contenders for the top of the list. That cigar is that's a top contender I think for me, Kevin. I don't think
One of the
Mitchell
unique
smokes it, but
features of that cigar for me is in the smoking experience standpoint. I mean, Don Carlos is probably like my favorite Fuente of all time. One of the standout features of that is, I mean, I think, and Matt, I believe you can speak to this as well. You could really taste the wrapper leaf in that particular Vitola.
you can.
I mean, obviously, things were done differently to make it that size, but the wrapper's the star of that one. And it was a very, very, very good smoking experience. I mean, it's one of those ones that if you can find them, get them, and you won't be sorry, especially if you love the Don Carlos, you have to try and find these.
Yeah, Don Carlos has always been one of my favorites from Fuente as well. That wrapper is great. There's a lot of flavor in that wrapper. I've been fortunate enough to smoke a bunch of the Lanceros, or the Phantoms, as they're known as officially, in that blend, and you really taste the wrapper. And I'll tell you, that wrapper is a lot stronger than I think some people realize, and it's not because they don't have a good palate or anything. They just, when you smoke it in that size, it's like, holy shit! Like, I can't believe like how much power this wrapper really has. It's just, it is. And it worked great on that size. It's a short size. It's kind of close to it's like a short Robusto. It's honestly, it would be great. I don't think it'll ever happen. But like, that's like the size of like, a firecracker. You know what I mean? That,
Yeah.
United, that would be like a great size. And honestly, I think that'd be a great blend for it too. Maybe a slight tweak to put a little more power in it to kind of like add to that, that firecracker aspect. But like, yeah, it's kind of got that like kind of attitude going on, and that would be cool. Like I said, I don't think we'll actually see that happen, but it's kind of a nice little setup for it. I think it would be cool, but I think it would be a good firecracker release. But yeah, it's a cool little size. And one of the things I thought was funny is when we put that review out, we got some feedback on that. And people could not believe that you got 66 minutes out of that cigar.
It's a slow, for a little cigar, it is a very slow burner. I mean, you smoke with me. I mean, I smoke fast.
Yep.
I mean, like,
Yep.
I can burn on a Toro in just a little bit over an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And for that thing to last over an hour, and it's I don't remember the size. It's like 3.5, right? I believe.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So for that to last literally 63 minutes, and I mean, and when I do reviews, I smoke a review cigar as I would normally smoke a cigar. I don't set it down and let it rest, or take my time to smoke it. I smoke it as if I'm smoking a regular cigar, and every single one of those was like right in that time frame.
Yeah, it's a 3.5 by 55.
Yeah, which was really surprising to me, as I expected when I looked at it. That's like, I was prepared to be disappointed. It's like, in a half hour it's going to be done, and it just wasn't the case.
Yeah, and Mitchell made a good point too. It's like, when I'm kind of I've slowed down in the last couple of years just because I've just mellowed out. But I'm still a faster than average smoker, and you're right. I mean, when you and I smoke together, we're usually on par. But Mitchell made a good point too. Is even for a fast smoker, when you smoke a cigar that's already that small, you do kind of tend to adjust, because you don't want to rip through a cigar that size. Like, being a power smoker and smoking a cigar like that and trying to smoke it like you would like a big Toro. You may be a fast smoker, but you also know that you don't want to smoke a small cigar like that, because you're really going to get it hot. it's not going to taste as good. It's gonna have more of a char to it because you're getting it hot and you're puffing it faster. So you're gonna try to smoke it slower too, out of necessity of preserving the flavor of that cigar. So that does come into play.
I mean, 95% of the time I would agree with that, but I mean, in this one, I mean, I literally smoked that if I was smoking a Toro, and it lasted 63 minutes. I mean, I was blown away.
That also speaks to the construction and the pack on the filler, and how much tobacco is really in there. Because how much tobacco.
I mean,
That's
it's
because
tight.
how slow it burns.
Yeah, that cigar is really hard. Like if you actually give it the squeeze test, it's
Not the
very
draw,
thin
just
cigar.
the physical.
Yeah, the draw is perfect, but
Right.
it's like just the physical construction of cigar. I mean, it is packed with tobacco.
So that's also going to affect how fast it burns. I mean, look, another thing you take into consideration is, to Kevin's point, you look at, a lot of the Padrones, like the 64s, the 26s, arguably some of my favorite cigars. I love those. And they always draw really loose and they burn really fast because they're great cigars. And there's no knock. But that tells me that the filler isn't as dense as it is in some other cigars. So it burns a little bit quicker because it's not as solid of a pack to burn through. Now, you can have a cigar that has a nice tough pack like Kevin's referring to, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to have a tight draw. But it will burn slower. I mean, it's just kind of common, sense in a way. It's just, the more material you have to burn through, the slower it's going to be. But as long as you have good airflow, your draw will be fine.
Yep.
Which, it's great that you can make a little cigar like that last that long.
I mean, it is. I mean, I was kind of hoping that it would be, kind of a relatively quicker smoker. So it'd be one of those cases where if you don't have a lot of time and you want to enjoy the greatness of a Don Carlos, that you could actually grab it and smoke it if you have like a half hour to go. But I mean, literally a half hour, you get half that cigar smoked and end up still having to set it down. So, I mean, it's definitely not a cigar to pick up if you're short on time.
No. Don't let the size deceive you.
Yep. Don't let the size fool you.
It's like this cigar. I mean, this is a small little cigar too. I mean, I have a little bit of ash in me, but that's still most of it right there. I mean, it started maybe like here, I think. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe like a 3/8 of an inch that's missing. And you can tell that one also has a tight pack. It's burning at a decent rate. It's not super fast, but you can tell there's a full pack in there. But it draws great. It tastes amazing. Very full in flavor. Man, that is tasty. I'm so glad I grabbed that.
It's a good cigar.
Yeah, I'm really glad I grabbed that. I grabbed stuff at random tonight. I was kind of running around and I was like, oh, I'm gonna grab one of these, and I'm so glad I did. Very, very delicious. Yeah, but yeah, so Cigar of the Year stuff is being worked on. We are making our way towards that. It looks like a lot of that stuff's going to be unveiled in January. So, like I said, we have a busy couple of weeks coming up here on a personal note and on a team note. So, it's going to take us some time to get everything put together. I know a lot of people have already started. I know Cigar Show Tim's here, and he recorded his top 10 list. I know some other people started. I know the Coop countdown has officially begun, but I think we're shooting for January to get our stuff out, just because we just need some time, and it's still on par. A lot of stuff doesn't come out till January anyway. I don't think the top of Coop's list comes out till January anyway. I know Half Wheel's stuff comes out January. I think Dojo's stuff comes out January.
It's a tough year this year too. It really is. I mean, there's stuff that we thought would be contenders that isn't. There's some that were surprises, and I mean, I think like the top 5, what we're gonna come out like our top 5. I mean, it's close.
I think we know roughly what our top 5 is. I think where each of them goes in that top 5 is going to be tough because they're all really good, and then outside of that, it's kind of like there's some good stuff, but I think that the top 5, I think, are going to stand. I think they're really going to stand alone compared to the rest of the list.
They are, and there's a wide variance, I think, from 11 down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree. So I mean, again, it's a fun time of the year. It's a little extra busy, but it's a fun time of the year. We'll get it done. And then once it is, it'll be cool because the fun part is just unveiling the list and hearing everyone's reaction. And oh, how come this didn't make the list? And how come this wasn't higher? And I thought that this got 15, and this is easily a number 3. Or actually, this is number 1 all day. I can't believe you put this at number 15. Like, this is a number 1. It's
You're
like,
gonna get that no matter what.
oh, I know.
It is.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. It's like I've even done the same thing with everybody else's list. It's like, wow, you freaking kidding me? That's number 1. Yeah, there's not a chance.
And it's funny because it's all subjective.
Yep.
They're always different.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's been tougher this year too. Like the real world job. We just had F1 here. So I mean, that literally has occupied the last 6 months of my existence here in Vegas. Working and trying to get that off. And now that that's done and gone, now it's playing catch up of the other stuff that was missed while I was working on that. And then I've got to get all the smoke and tobacco stuff in as well. So, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I literally feel like I have 2 full-time jobs right now.
I know. Me too. It's a tough time, but
yeah. And your career path and my career path are actually aligned, like outside of smoking tobacco. So that's unique.
Yep. It's very true. It's a very busy time. And then there's Mitchell up in Canada who's plugging along. I got to give it to him. He's been busy with our stuff too. I mean, he's got 1 review that went out this week. I know he's working on 2 more, and he's working on his part of the the top 25 list right now. So he's cranking away up there in Canada too. So I appreciate the efforts from everyone on the team, but we're all putting in the time for you guys. So very excited to put it out there too. So it'll be fun. I'm gonna keep this show kind of I don't want to say short, but kind of just on par. We're almost at the 2-hour mark, so I think I might leave it there. And Kevin and I also have some other business that we have to do after the show before we wrap up. And I'm trying not to make this a super late night, so I think we're gonna end the show there. But this was a great time, and it's a great discussion. And Kevin, thanks for being here once again.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for all of our listeners on YouTube and Facebook and on the podcast. Thank you very much. We love you guys. We couldn't do what it is that we do without you guys. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. We appreciate it very much for all the love and support. Like I said, and like Kevin said, don't forget to like and subscribe on all of our platforms. Visit smokingtobacco.com for more news, reviews, and updates from the cigar industry. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.